Hi everybody, welcome back to Bentley House. I'm Aira and today I'm continuing to work on my abandoned coffee shop project. If you haven't seen this project before, be sure to check out my playlist, but today we're going to be putting in a coffee bar counter. I need some extra space for my coffee machine. I need something in there to make it really look like it is a coffee shop. This piece of furniture is going to have a countertop and a display case to really show off that it is a retail area. To start off, I need to go ahead and make a pattern on the floor. I need to mark off how big I want this thing to be. If you are wanting to follow along, do not worry. I am going to be providing my drawing that I am creating right now as a free download for you in the description below. You can check out that link. It is not necessarily a pattern, but you will be able to follow along a little bit easier if you have this drawing in your possession. In the top view drawing, I'm showing how big the countertop is going to be and how far out the shelves in the display case are going to stick. This is the front view, so I can see how far up I need to put my shelves, and I've also provided a few little extras as decoration on the front of the piece of furniture. And this is the side view of the shape of the display cabinet, and I'm also showing how I want my shelves to be here as well. So I'm just looking at this, or I'm drawing this piece of furniture from several angles, so it's a bit easier for me to build. And I will show you how I use this pattern. So I've made a copy so I don't destroy my original, and I'm starting out by cutting out the size I want my countertop to be. This is going to be made out of balsa wood. It's that foamy wood that I used in my original countertop tutorial. You will probably want to check that out. I do not show you how I paint this countertop, but you can check it out in that video. This is the same exact piece of wood that those were made out of. I believe it is a 1/4 inch thick. So as you can see, it fits perfectly onto my pattern, and now that I have it, I'm just going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to cut off the very sharp edges. Now remember, I'm making an abandoned coffee shop. It's old, weather has been beating away at it, so I'm not going to have very many sharp, crisp lines left on my wood pieces. Once that's finished, I'm just going to check it inside my project, make sure it's not too big, and I like how it looks. Now I'm going to cut out the front face from the front view of my pattern. I'm going to make sure I cut off the piece that shows the countertop. This is just going to be the front face piece. Now that I've cut that off, I'm going to be using 1/16 inch thick mat board to create the body of the piece of furniture. So I'm just going to place that right on top and then trace around it. I started using a ruler at first to be more exact, but in the end I just ended up tracing around my pieces that I cut out. It's really up to your preference. I am going to need 2 of these, one for the front and one for the back of the piece of furniture. Next, I'm going to take that same pattern piece and cut out the 2 squares that are my decoration panels for the front of my furniture. They should be about the same size, so really you only need to cut out one and then trace it 2 times. I traced both and they ended up kind of wonky, but just do it however you want to. These are going to sit on the front face of the furniture just like that. Now I'm going to cut out the side view, and this is going to be the sides of the display case. I am going to need, again, 2 of these. After that's finished, you're going to want to take that same pattern piece and you want to cut off the top of it so that it is the same exact height as the front of your piece of furniture. And this is going to make the side that is facing the wall. So I'm just going to cut that piece off, and now I have my last little piece of pattern that I need to create the main body of the furniture, and I'm going to trace that as well. Now that those are all on there, I'm going to cut each one of them out. I should have 2 rounded pieces and 1 piece that was created after I cut the top of the pattern off. Now I'm going to assemble the body of the furniture. I'm going to put the most recent piece that I traced on the side that's going to be facing the wall, and then I'm going to be adding one of my rounded pieces that will be the side of the display case. The other side will go here, and the countertop will sit like so. Now I am adding a few pieces on the inside just to support the frame. Because there's nothing inside the cabinet, it's really easy for it to go out of shape, and I wanted to keep these at 90-degree angles, so I'm just taking some scrap mat board and gluing them into the side. Now, like I said, I want to put some trim around the edge of the entire piece of furniture, so before I glue on my decorative panels, I want to put that on there so I can center them as best as possible. Once I'm ready to glue them, I'm just going to sand down the sides to round them out and take away the harsh, sharp edges. You will see how I glued those on in a minute. Now I'm going to cut out this small rectangle at the base of the display case. I'm going to make sure not to get the edges. There's 2 thin sides. Those are representing the rounded pieces we already cut out. So I'm cutting on the insides of those lines to get that small rectangle at the very base. This piece is also going to go onto the mat board. I am going to need 2 of these as well, one for the front and one for the back. I am also going to make 1 long piece that is the same exact width of this piece, so that these will eventually become the shelves that are inside the display case. Now I'm going to assemble the base of the display case. The first piece goes in the front at the bottom, and the second piece mirrors it but towards the back. Then I'm going to take the very long piece that I created that was the same exact width, lay it on top, and then make a mark where I need to cut it off. This piece is the very bottom shelf, or the very first display shelf on the bottom of the display case. After I have that cut and it is correct, I'm just going to glue it on, and it's going to create a nice little base for the display case. Now I can take my other rounded piece and add glue to the base that we just created, and then I can add that on as well. And now you can see the display case is coming together. Now I'm going to use this part of the drawing, the top view, to mark off how long my shelves need to be. So for the middle shelf in the display case, I'm going to mark how wide it needs to be, write mid on it for middle, and then I'm going to mark off how deep the top shelf needs to be and write top. Then with my ruler I can extend those lines and then cut them apart so that I have 2 shelves to go into my display case. Now I want to mark them at the correct heights. Of course, you can change this to whatever suits your project, but I'm just going to take my pencil and mark in my drawing where I wanted the heights to be. Once those are marked, I can put some glue on the sides of my shelves. One of them looks very square, so just make sure you have it going in the correct way. And you should put glue on both sides. It will hold on both sides of the rounded pieces in the display case. Now I have my shelf tiers kind of tiering back so that when I put something in the case to be displayed, more light will come through the top and it will be able to reach the things on the bottom shelf. That's why they are set back as they get higher. I also took a small strip from that same width that we cut earlier and just made a piece at the top. This is where later on when we create the fake glass that comes up and over the display case, it will have a place to rest. I also put a piece in the front that I can put some glue on and push the fake glass piece up against. Now I'm going to take some wood filler, and wherever I have my joints, I am going to add those in so that this makes a very smooth transition from the display case to the counter cabinet. I want it to look like it was created as one piece of furniture. After I've got that on there, I'm going to sand it flat, and then I can add my base trim all around the side. This is a pre-cut piece of wood made for model making. It's a basswood piece. You can get it to whatever matches the trim that you have around your project. And so that's what I'm doing. I want it to match the trim I already have as the baseboards in my coffee shop. As I go around, I want to make sure that I cover each and every piece or each and every side except for the side that goes against the wall, because I want that to be as flat against the wall as possible. I know we have a lot of different colors going on here, but I am going to paint this piece, so I don't really need to worry that one part of it is mat board and one part of it is wood. As this dries, I want to make sure and clamp it down so that nothing warps and everything stays tightly together. Because I didn't draw the back of this project when I was making my design, I didn't really think about it very much, and after I'd put it together, decided I wanted to put some cabinet doors back there, because most likely in the coffee shop you would have some kind of storage, and because you will be able to see this, I wanted to make sure that it had some kind of interest. So I don't suggest doing this after you've put it together, so if you decide you want to do this step, please do it before you glue everything together, because I'm risking my fingers here. But what I'm doing is I'm just cutting out 2 rectangles to be openings for cabinet doors, and then I'm just tracing them onto a piece of paper so that I can create some rectangles that are just slightly larger and will sit on the face of the cabinet so that they would look like cabinet doors that would close. Now, you can put these on there without cutting out the pieces and it will still look like cabinet doors, but I wanted to make mine look like they were falling off, so I did need to cut holes, and you will see that in the future how that looks, but I did need to cut holes so that it looked realistic, like the door was falling off and you could see inside. Now I'm using some burnt umber paint to create a base coat. This does not have to be a super nice coat of paint, but something to make it all one color, and if it should be a piece of furniture that's made out of wood, brown is going to be the best color for a base coat. I'm also doing the inside because if at some point I want to make a big crack or a hole in this cabinet and you can see inside, I don't want it to be white. So now I'm showing you I added a few pieces of mat board on the display case, because when I put the plastic that's going to look like the glass on there, I want something I can put the glue on and push the glass up against. So I wanted to show that to you before I painted it so you could see it really, really well. Now I'm going to be adding some crackle medium. This goes between the base coat and your final coat of paint. And the thicker you put it on, the bigger your cracks. The thinner you put it on, the smaller the cracks. So keep that in mind if you decide to use crackle. I'm going to be using this off-white buttermilk color as my final coat. I don't want it to be white. I want it to look as though the paint has yellowed and aged over time, and I can do that with white and add aging on top, but I'm just going to go ahead and make it easier on myself and start with a yellowed color. Remember, when you're using crackle, you can also add some of your own distressing in it while the paint is still a little bit wet. Here's what it looks like completely crackled. It still looks a little bit too nice and new and bright, so I will have to be adding some more aging. This is how I did the top of the counter, and like I said in the beginning, if you want to see how I did this, you can go back to my countertop video. I will link it in the iCard, and you can see in detail how I created that look. Now I'm going to use my typical watered down brown and black paint in order to make this cabinet look even older. I want it to have drips because it should be looking like it's been exposed to the elements, so if there's been stuff dripping through a roof or a ceiling, it will have black in the water, it will be moldy and gross, dirty, so I just want to make sure that I get it good and grunged up. After doing this all over the cabinet, this is what it looks like, and I actually do add a little bit more later once it's in the project. Here it is with the countertop on top. Now I'm going to be adding the cabinet doors on. One good thing about waiting until after you've done the base to add the cabinet doors, it will look as though they are separate pieces. And like I said, I do want to make it look like one of the doors was falling off, so now you can see the opening in the cabinet, and it does give it a little bit more of a realistic effect having that opening. Now I'm going to create just some simple handles for these doors. I don't know what gauge wire this is, it's just stuff I had around the house, but I'm making kind of a staple shape, and then I'm clipping it off of the wire. It's easiest to do this with some pliers. And then I'm making two, because I have two cabinet doors, and I'm just going to put them next to my cabinet doors, mark with a pencil where each part is going to have to go into the door. Then I'm going to be using a hand drill. You can get these at any hardware store and probably most craft stores. It's just something I can put a drill bit into and drill into the mat board. Once I have both holes drilled, I can take my handle with a pair of pliers, will be the easiest way to do it, and put glue on both ends and then stick them into the doors. Of course, they look a little bit too shiny and new, so I will be putting some brown paint on them in a minute. I also decided I wanted to do some hinges. These are the easiest hinges in the world. I just cut a small portion of that same wire off. I put some glue wherever the hinge would be and just stuck that piece of wire. They're not super detailed, they're just a little bit of wire, but it does give that shiny detail that people might think, oh, there's a hinge there. Now I'm going to be making the display case glass. And of course it's not real glass. I am going to be using a 2-liter bottle. I'm going to make sure I use one that is clear. This is a Diet Cream Soda 2-liter. Hashtag not sponsored, but if you want to, I would totally take that sponsorship because cream soda is delicious. Now I'm going to lay that clear plastic down on top of my drawing so that the curve of the plastic matches the curve that I will want my display case to have. And I'm going to be kind of, I was going to say scoring, that's the word, scoring the inside edges of the display case. This will cause the plastic to have the exact width I need for it to fit between the curved sides that we've already glued onto the piece. Now I'm just going to take my scissors and cut along the score lines that I created with my X-Acto knife. I also want to make sure that the bottom of the piece of plastic is nice and flat, so when I glue it on, it has a nice edge on the bottom of the display case. Now I'm going to put it up against the edge. Those pieces that I showed you earlier are going to help it form, and it's something that I can push the plastic up against. And as you can see, it is moldable enough that it fits really well on this display case. I also marked with scoring along the top where it needed to be cut off for the back of the display case, and now I should have a perfectly fitted piece for my piece of furniture. I do want to make this piece look like it has cracked and been broken, so I'm just going to take a pin, and wherever I want that broken piece to be, I'm marking it out, and then I'm going to cut that piece out with my X-Acto. And I can create all sorts of cracks by using the scoring method with my X-Acto. Now I'm going to be using super glue for this. I find it's the best for when I'm gluing plastic onto something. And those pieces that I put in previously, I'm just going to put plenty of super glue in there so that when the plastic hits it, it wants to hold tight. And I'm going to do this on the bottom and then all around the curved edge. You want to go slowly with this, making sure it is held on with every single bit. Now, if you're trying to make a perfect countertop, you want to be more careful because super glue can make your plastic look kind of messy. But if you're doing a kind of messed up counter like I am, it doesn't really matter. Now, of course, I need to age it a little bit. I just want it to look as though water has dripped down on top of the glass and made it look a little bit hazy. Now I need to fill the display case, of course. I made these moldy foods one night just playing around with clay. I didn't take a video of it or anything, but I thought they turned out cute, and it's making me think that this project is more going to be along the lines of people just got up and abandoned a place. It wasn't raided or anything like that. People just left and left everything as it was, even the food in the cabinet. So I'm still kind of creating the storyline of the abandoned coffee shop in my head. Once I've glued the furniture in place, I need to, of course, age it into my project, which means kind of putting some age lines and some marks to show that the pieces have been next to each other for years and years and years. If you're working on an abandoned or spooky project like I am, I highly suggest doing this method where you age things once they're in the project, not just outside of the project and then setting them in, because it gives a much more cohesive look to the entire project. So now you can see the item in the abandoned coffee shop. I think it really highlights this room now as a real coffee shop. The display case, I think, just makes it. I'm very happy with how this turned out. Again, like I said, if you want to download my drawing and give it a try, you're more than welcome to. The link is in the description. As always, if you try it out, I'd love to see your version of this piece. You can always tag me on Instagram at Bentley House Minis. I hope you guys enjoyed this project. I will be working hard on this abandoned coffee shop in the coming months and also on the Addams Family. So make sure you're staying tuned in by being subscribed and hitting that notification bell so you know when I upload. I hope you guys have an amazing week, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!